then D minor 7, the laughs come hard in, then B flat with a C in the bottom, oh, C7, F, D minor 7, dun 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 dun. That's E fully diminished to an F. Then back to D, a choke of grief, heart and I, beyond belief, a broken man too tough to cry. And then you're back to surf's up.
All right, welcome back to the In My Beats Boys Room podcast with Matthew Hartz. I am Adam Schreiner, and we are here doing the smile.
I'm smiling.
Yeah, doing the smile episode.
Got my smile shirt on.
Smile shirt, the smile stuff all behind you.
Oh yeah, this is the
smile corner there.
The smile, the cacophony of smile in the late 60s room is what I kind of call it.
Very cool.
It's not very together, and that's for a reason.
Yeah,
kind of a shrine.
Yeah,
you know?
And we're gonna get into the music. Well, I'll hold off. We'll get to that. Let's do the stuff that we need to do. If you please would like and subscribe our YouTube channel, we appreciate that very much. If you want to follow Matthew personally on Facebook, you just look up Matthew Hartz, and then on Instagram is going to be Matthew Hartz Music. Those are the three main avenues that he operates from. But it's mostly just YouTube is where you're going to find most of the stuff. So we did have several sponsors again. Susie Tilly is going to be, we want to thank you for your sponsorship, as well as those who sponsored, who we're not going to acknowledge here, but that we do want to thank and appreciate the sponsorship. Yep. If you want to be a sponsor of the podcast, follow the link in the description below, or you can use this QR code that I'm going to put up for you, and you can scan that and get in that way. Just fill out the form, and then, go from there. That's pretty much it. We'll just get that out of the way, and then let's get into what we're all here for.
Is that it? Do we have any news? I've been rolling around teaching camps. I taught some Beach Boy music in California last week, or I've been back about.
Is that the one that you do down in Big Sur?
It's close to Mount Shasta.
Oh, okay.
But the Claridges have that camp, and so anyway, so Beach Boys are fresh on my mind.
Nice.
But got some other stuff going to be at Berkeley in Boston coming up in October, going to be in Park City, Utah in September, some other things
just
going on.
Just doing like a
workshops, performances, different, some of these are...
is Berkeley for teaching then, essentially
teaching and performing with several other people, including Tashina and Tristan Claridge, Luke Price, Wes Westmoreland, from Texas, but it's going to be a Texas fiddle master type specialty thing that they're doing for a week long at Berkeley, and we're going to be performing with the orchestra.
Have you been Have you been to Berkeley before?
I haven't been to Berkeley myself. I haven't been to Boston even. But a lot of the people that we're working with, Matt Glazer, who's the head of the string department there, I know him and actually met him about 30 years ago. And so the people we're working with, I know most of them. So,
cool. Well, that'll be exciting.
Yeah, that'll be a lot of fun. But anyway, got lots of stuff going on. And as soon as some of these things I need to let people know if they're, like for instance, Boston. Once I find out more about that and what the exact events are going to be, and if there's anything that anybody can attend,
yeah, for sure. Very cool. Okay, and so then here we go.
The pace of all of this is just amazing. We talk about those 8 albums from 62 to 64, but then Surf and Safari to Pet Sounds in 3 years, the complexity of the music. And then while Pet Sounds is going to get started on Good Vibrations, which is a shift to a whole different style of writing, and it's seamless. Right after Pet Sounds, he's already into this. And how different those two projects are. Pet Sounds is beautiful, intricate music, and some of the Smile music is too, but some of it is completely different and exploring whole bunches of different things, right? Brian at the time called it a teenage symphony to God, and that makes more sense to me all the time the further I go with this, because I found out about Smile when I was about 10, reading about songs called Who Ran the Iron Horses and the Grand Coulee Dam, and we thought all those songs were separate songs. We didn't know they were one song called Cabinessence. That's how much confusion there was out there. And so the symphonic aspects of this Smile project are pretty amazing, and they have their roots in Brian listening to Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue. Snippets of Rhapsody in Blue show up through Smile. Not to mention, parts of all the Smile songs, especially Heroes and Villains, and other tunes show up in snippets within other pieces. The way symphonic things work, like when you'll be in the first movement, and then all of a sudden in the third movement you go, oh, wait a second, there's a quote from that first, it's that kind of stuff going on. It's just kind of mind-blowing. Yeah. It really is mind-blowing to think, how all this stuff went down. And then after all of this, which was, at least 2 albums worth of material, that it was just abandoned in its time. It never came out until 37 years later, sort of. Right. And then in 2011, sort of, but it never really has come out, And it's hard for me to ever explain the Smile story to somebody. That's why I'm glad we're doing this special episode to talk about it. And I knew we were going to have to talk about context a little bit before we get into the tunes, because a lot of this is, you have to have context in order to discuss some of this stuff. Right. And even when you were talking to me as we were prepping for this, you had me do stuff that, and I'm glad you did, but you had me watch the documentary Beautiful Dreamer by David Leaf. And and you said, and you just said, which is great. And you just said, look, you need to do this so that you can understand how this all kind of fits together when you're listening to the album. And then you had me listen to the 2004, Brian Presents. Mm-hmm. And then you had me also listen to the Smile sessions from 2011. Disc one from 2011. Mm-hmm. So, a lot of, which is necessary. It's really necessary. I just don't think I could have put all I would have been asking you so many questions about what's going on if you didn't have me, if you didn't prep me to watch all that, which I'm glad you did. Like you said, that documentary was great. I was completely captivated by it, and it was good job, David Leaf. I know you always praise him. Well, he's a legend, and that's one of the top Beach Boy documentaries out there for me. I love the way it's put together. Love the entertainment value of it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to jump up and grab this real quick. One of my favorite things is that on the front of the bonus seat, this is the painting that David Anderley, Brian's manager at the time, did of him, where when Brian finally saw it, he thought his soul had been stolen. So this is kind of the fame. And when I saw David using this prominently for the marketing I thought, oh man, that's cool, because I'd never even seen the picture. I'd heard about it at that point. Oh shit, there it is. Yeah. The way I had you listen to it, it's because I wasn't around when it happened. I was, that was a few years before I was born, but I've talked to people who were, and it was such a confusing time for Beach Boy fans. Good Vibrations had just come out and hit number 1, after the disappointing commercial, performance of Pet Sounds. We talked about that, then Good Vibrations was the shift to a new type of writing and an even bigger leap production-wise, and it went number 1 worldwide, gave him all the power in the world. Now he had the power to do anything he wanted. Capitol was going to let him do whatever he wanted to. And so he dreamed up this thing of writing a whole album in this modular style like Good Vibration was. And anyway, there was also I think the Leonard Bernstein, it was called Inside Pop on CBS, where Brian played Surf's Up at the piano solo, and people were blown away. Elvis Costello says it's like having a recording of Mozart playing one of his pieces, it's like, but that along with, Capitol had heavily marketed it, including printing up, I think, 1 million covers for it, by January 67. Everybody's waiting for this thing. Everybody's waiting for the beginning of 67. And then all of a sudden in April or May, Derek Taylor, the Beatles publicist who Brian had hired for them over in America, just makes an announcement that says, it's all been scrapped. Everything that he's worked on for the past year, every finely wrought piece of music, it's all been scrapped. Then, after summer's over, I think it's September, Smiley Smile comes out, which is, you talk about 180 degrees from what Smile would have been. I mean, it's now it went from all these Wrecking Crew big production things to them just at Brian's new house with just a P bass and an organ. Some of the Smile, and that came out. People thought that was the real Smile. And they're, oh, what? And it wasn't understood in its time. I guess it was just so confusing. Yeah. It was good. Nobody, I'll meet people today they'll say, oh, I remember that Smile came out. Yeah, it was that goofy album. No, that wasn't Smile. That's Smiley Smile. And calling it that. Yeah. Even people are thinking that it's
totally.
So I hate to beat all that to death, but I mean, it was tough for people that were even there.
Right. And I know that I'm going to Smiles next on, it's on deck for what we're going to do next. Right. So, but is there, just real quick, is there a lot of Smile tracks on Smiley Smile?
Yeah. But you wait till you hear them. You're going to be shocked. Okay. It's pretty cool. I love Smile. It's one of my favorite albums. But anyway, getting back to the confusion, I had to give you all of those exercises just so you could have some sort of anchor to hold on to while you're listening to all this. Yeah. I'm just letting you know that the general public didn't even have that anchor.
Oh, sure.
And even on into the 70s and 80s, was it just a legend? Oh, that stuff was really recorded. Oh, there's bootlegs out there. Oh, yeah. And then all the proof. Yeah. It was all there. It was all going to happen. And just, he decided to kill it. David Leaf says he killed it to save himself.
Yeah.
Is because he was in such a manic, drug-fueled, it was just, it would have been faster and faster and then disaster.
Right.
And I guess I'm pretty glad he did that too. One thing I want to say before we get into some of the other context stuff is that in 2004, you mentioned this before we started the thing or the podcast this morning, I was so excited that Brian had got back together with Van Dyke and they were going to finish this thing. And Darian was helping him, who was my favorite of Brian's musicians. It was just like a dream come true. And I think I had these t-shirts made and I got them made, about 20 of them made, and had all the Wilson Project guys over and a bunch of other Beach Boy friends. And I had raw vegetables, including beets. Funny story with John, my brother, on that. He called me the next day and said, what the hell's going on? But we had tried to have everything that vegetables name checked laid out there. And so we had a party. It was a big deal for me in 2004 when it came. I went out to Chicago and saw the show. But then in 2011, when that box set came out with essentially using Brian's thing from 2004 as a blueprint, but it's all it's Brian, Dennis, and Carl. The difference in that just makes my hair stand up on my end. Their young Pet Sounds voices, and as well as Brian's band did on it in 2004. I never reach for that anymore. I'll listen to it a little bit. I think it's kind of cool that they finished up some of the things and put lyrics, things, and everything like that. But I'm always back to this.
That was one thing I like the even though it's not complete, but like specifically the vocals, it's just you can't touch that. You know what I mean? Like even as good as they did on that, it's just when because I'm listening to, so for me it was about a week that I listened to the just the Brian Presents Smile, just that, and then when I sat down to do my take my notes on it, I would listen to the track from that album, and then I'd listen right after that. I'd listen to the Smile sessions, being the first time that I'd ever listened to the Smiles, sessions from the original, and the Beach Boys version and their vocals. You just can't beat it. It's just too good. And that, I don't know, I think it's all of them, but specifically Carl, on some of those, is just that signature Carl sound which for me across the board is like my favorite. But yeah, that's like you said, the goosebumps that are
It's Brian, Dennis, and Carl. I mean, the genetics of their voices lay down so well together. I mean, Dennis was singing very well at this time too, and Carl was just getting started, but the blend of those three especially, but then Mike is a cousin and everything. I mean, genetics plays a huge part in the satisfaction of Beach Boy harmony, believe it or not.
Absolutely.
It's the fact that they're brothers and their physical makeup is, and so that's why it's magic.
Yeah.
A lot of it.
One thing that I think it was said, and I've heard it said before about, Brian just in general, but like, how it was ahead of its time, and it's like, I don't even know if ahead of its time is like the correct term. It's like it's almost outside its time. Like, what do you mean ahead of its time? I still think even today it's outside of time. It's outside of time. Like even today, if that came out, like this is ahead of its, you could consider it like time hasn't caught up to
right.
it.
Well, it's been said that one of the big things is when he heard the Strawberry Fields and Penny Lane single, he goes, they've already done it. And Sgt. Pepper kind of took the wind out of his sails too. But to me, this was even so much different and radically. It was never going to be as commercially successful, I think, as Sgt. Pepper was, but it's in so many ways, it's a much more ambitious project.
Yeah.
And so if it would have come out, who knows? It might have really blown some minds, and maybe it would have been commercially successful. But I think you're right. I don't think you can put this in any time.
No, it's
an explosion of a guy's mind.
Yeah, I mean, quite literally. So should we start to get into?
Almost. I do want to talk about a couple other things. The Sandbox tunes in Beautiful Dreamer. They talk, David is asking Brian about, when they built the Sandbox and put the tent up in the Laurel Way house, because all of this stuff was done at Laurel Way, not Bellagio. He said, well, what songs did you write in the Sandbox? And Brian says, Heroes and Villains, Cabinessence, Wonderful, and Surf's Up. And David Lee says, that's a pretty good Sandbox. And Brian's something like, yeah, that's a really good Sandbox. And if they wrote those 4 tunes in the Sandbox, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, especially Wonderful and Surf's Up, they're among Brian's top compositions ever. The others are great too. I'm going to focus most of my music analysis on the Sandbox tunes. There's a lot going on in this thing musically, and most of it wasn't even, the music was finished, but we really don't have context of what was going to be going over the top of the music, even though we've got Holidays and Roll Plymouth Rock and the Song for Children or something like that, all those new lyrics that got put in. I have a tough time believing. I think those are, 60-year-old Van Dyke Parks ideas as opposed to 20-year-old Van Dyke Parks ideas. Like the pirate and a tune on a holiday.
Which is what you said when you told me that how when they finished it up in 2004, like they just did the best that they could to capture that.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So it's the best version we can get based off of that. Yeah.
So back to, I'm going to keep my musical analysis down to mainly the Sandbox tunes. There's some other stuff going too, but I do want to talk about that this, starting with Good Vibrations, is a major shift in Brian's writing style, not only to this modular style that he wants to make all of Smile like and even worked with in albums after this, but he got into, I'm calling it mantra music.
Makes sense.
Instead of a bunch of hard chord progressions like Don't Talk and I Just Wasn't Made for These Times on Pet Sounds, parts of Smile are sometimes just two chords going from back and forth from each other and exploring a bunch of harmonic ideas within, like all the possibilities in between those two simple chords. And you'll have a lot of times when he's doing that, and it seems repetitious at times, but what he's trying to do with his music is almost get you into like a meditative state,
right? And
when that type of stuff is going.
And had the meditation era that hadn't started yet, had it?
They had no, but I'm kind of betting that they'd heard something about it, and I don't think Brian. I think Brian was just naturally feeling that way, and it soothed him. Much the way he'd play famously shortening bread, ding over and over and over and over, just one chord, because he'd get into the vibration of it, and so these things that are now, a lot of times they'll shift into these things where just a couple of chords, but exploring a whole bunch of things within that, and it's just it's not only Smile, but going forward from this point, it changes in that way. He went through so many different periods, but I guess those are the things I want to say about it before we get into the tunes. I hope I wasn't.
No, I think that's good.
Labored about it.
I think and maybe this has to do with the modular type of recording, but there are moments that are kind of disorienting, like throughout the whole album, in the sense of like when he puts other parts of a song in another song, where it's just like, okay, wait, am I like where I'm
and
like,
some of that might be editing that wasn't supposed to. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Like,
they don't seem like they fit, or it wasn't supposed to be edited exactly this way.
Like we're like, I'm just listening, and I have my noise canceling headphones on, eyes closed, doing the whole thing, and like we're like, oh, okay, I open my eyes and I look at my phone, like, what song am I on?
Oh yeah, that's the whole point.
And so that maybe that was intentional, and just also the there's a lot of this like where it's quiet and then loud, like that happens. Dynamics. Like the dynamic of that happens quite a bit, to where sometimes I think it fits really well, other times I think it's a bit jarring.
Oh yes,
and maybe that's intentional, maybe it's not, but either
and
way,
maybe it was just the way they put it out. Do you know what I mean? Because they had it that way on a bootleg or something like that, and it hadn't been edited.
There was one song, I can't remember which one it is. I'll find it in my notes here. But the 2004 version, when it goes from quiet, I'll find it in here. But it goes quiet to loud, is a lot more jarring than the original. Yeah.
Oh yeah. There's some of that's way different from the two versions.
So that and I don't mean disorienting in like a negative way, but it just kind of like. And then, I don't know, even some of the stuff where, like, you feel like a swirling almost, just like this, like,
I think a lot of it was meant to be listened to while you're on drugs.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
A lot of acid.
I know. I wish, when I was in my fun experimental years of that sort of stuff, I wish I would have had this album to put on.
One other thing before we get into the tunes. So this thing was written as a piece, right? Like a big symphony sort of a thing. When they got to the 2004 thing, they decided, okay, 3 movements. We're not limited by 2 sides of an album, so they decided to go with this. There was the exploration of Manifest Destiny, the Old West, Americana, which starts with heroes and villains, cowboys and Indians, sort of on up through Cabinessence, Barnyards, and all that shit, right? And everything like that. That's your movement, and that's the idea behind that. And then you've got Wonderful, which is boy meets girl, boy and girl do stuff in the forest. Yeah. They're having kids, and the kid actually becomes the father of the man and surfs up as everything in one big god thing. So that's what I think they were calling that the cycle of life movement. And then you've got the elements, which is basically the vegetables for earth, wind chimes for air, love to say Dada for water, and Mrs. O'Leary's for fire. So it's in retrospect, they said 3 movements. I don't think there ever would have been thought of 3 movements back in 66,
then, sure.
67. And we were just think couple sides of the album and, Elements is going to close it out or whatever. Anyway, okay.
So
there we go, folks.
Yeah, and that's kind of just like the overarching like feel that I had, but let's get into the specifics. Let's get into each track.
Okay. So we're going to do Good Vibrations first.
You want to do, start there.
The reason is because it was the first thing start, even though it's stuck on the end of. Is it on the end of this one? Yeah. And is it on the end of Brian? Yes.
Yes, it's on the end of both.
So, but it was the thing that started the whole deal. And number 1, and it's both got that modular thing where you can put, just edit 3 sections of music together just fairly abruptly.
Yeah.
And the last 2 sections are examples of what I'm calling the mantra type music. The progression and the march feel in the bridge. Mark Volman, who was with the Turtles at the time, and later was with Flo and Eddie, who were part of Frank Zappa's group. He was part of Brian's circle at the time. It was at parties all the time and up at Brian's house. And I think he was even at the famous dinner party where Brian heard people tapping on their utensils, and he goes, wait a second, I'm going to get somebody up here to record everybody messing with their utensils tomorrow. Everybody come tomorrow night. Well, they showed up and nobody was there. But anyway, he was there for a lot of that stuff. And I always find it real strange. You've got Good Vibrations that starts. So I love the colorful clothes she wears. And the way the sunlight plays upon her hair. So it's a march, doom, 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 like some of the other stuff in Smile. But next year, Mark Volman's Turtles put out Imagine Me and You and Me. No matter how we toss the dice. Dun, 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 dun. It's the exact progression. Dun, 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 dun. March, feel happy together. Exactly. And it went number 1 the next year. You tell me he didn't rip that off from Good Vibrations.
Yeah.
Sitting up there with Brian all the time, right? And
never knew that.
So, yeah. Anyway, I thought that was, when I figured that out, I thought, and I knew Mark Volman had been up there and I go, yeah, that's just Good Vibrations.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm going to go through the tune a little bit.
Okay, we had to take a second and flip that mic so that you guys can see his hands on those chords.
Yeah, it's less tight like this too.
It was a little cramped in that corner. So okay, so go ahead and
we're talking about the Good Vibrations verse progression, and it's walk, don't run. Yeah. Dun 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 dun. Old rock and roll, right? Or Brian's The Lonely Sea. The Lonely Sea. Same progression, just different context, using a different feeling type of a tune. Wanted to make note of that. At the very end of that second line, or at the end of the second half of the verse, D flat, and then B. They might call it C flat here, and then B flat, and then D flat. Now the chorus of Good Vibration, 3 elements, and it just stays. This is kind of the mantra music thing. It stays on 1 chord for a long. Triplets, cello on the record. A flat. So that's one element of it, but then you've also got Brian's bass line played by Carol Kay. These are like key changes instead of just chord change. Then you got another guitar doing this, the Memphis riff. You have no idea that all that stuff's going to make the bass line people and maybe the triplet thing, but I love all of those elements to the chorus. Then you get into what I call the honky-tonk piano part, which is just a couple of chords, and we've talked about that in other episodes about how even it was probably a pretty unorthodox way that Brian and Van Dyke's recorded this piano part, maybe a hand over a hand. I've seen it demonstrated before, but it's just B flat 7. Just for a long time. No. She sends me there. Then he finds. What a sensation. My mind. Organ. Then this. Got to keep those loving good vibrations. It's a 1, 2, and a 5, 3 chords, but it's still repeating. It's like that mantra thing, right? Then comes back into the chorus at the very end of that. So let's see. Got to keep those loving good vibrations happening with her. And then start at the B flat now. Back up, A flat. Da 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 da. Make note of this part because when we get to another song, I'm going to reference this melody. Ba da 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 da, ba da da. Up to A flat, da da da. Up to B, da 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 da. Da. Don't expect going to A flat, da 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 da. Then it ends on the A flat. And that's those hard cello triplets on the end over that A flat. It's a fun tune. It's never been like my all-time favorite Beach Boys tune, but it's a great tune, and I can see why it resonates with the masses.
Sure, yeah.
It's also that frequency. Brian picked up on it, or asked his mom why dogs would bark at some people and not others. It's because of vibrations that they, and that's all of this thing is even the theorem in it. There's my dysphonia again, folks. Yeah. I get it fixed August 12th. But that's the frequency, and then also that those are frequent. This whole thing has visual representations of frequencies all the way through it. Good vibrations, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I mean it's.
What do you got to say about good vibrations?
I mean, it's good vibrations. So, we know about. The only thing I think is that, and I think this applies to any cover. You just can't touch the original. Like nothing makes me feel the way the original makes me feel. Even with Brian doing, his version in 2004, it doesn't. And I, after listening to the Brian Presents for that week, and then listening to it, and then putting the original on after, I was like, yeah, this just it's gonna leave its own for
right from the get go.
Right from
instead of Brian's old voice, even though it's ghost doubled by probably Jeff or somebody like that, it's still not. It's nothing like Carl's voice coming out on the verse on the original.
And even compare that to other people who've covered the song.
Oh yeah,
it's just you can't even. It's one of those songs where it's like, I mean, you can cover it, but you're never. Sometimes covers you're like, wow, I really like that cover better, but not with this song.
All right. Well, so now we get into the album, and so we've beaten this to death, but the Good Vibrations gave him creative license with everybody to do whatever he wanted to. And so then what happens next is the result of that. And it opens with Our Prayer. I encourage people to go to the box set and listen to the Our Prayer sessions because it's really funny. Well, to me, it's funny and it's enlightening. I mean, Brian, right during the sessions, you said, "Are you guys feeling the acid yet?" And then later on, "Denny, do you have any more of those hash joints left? I know you do." This whole thing was recorded under the influence of hallucinogens and speed and all that. It's just what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's. You've always heard those stories, but then to hear the session tapes with the actual
proof.
So we wanted to find that snippet, but we couldn't. The tune "Our Prayer," it's an amazing chorale piece. That it's similar to the arrangement of the Lord's Prayer, which is not a Brian arrangement from. It was the B-side of Little Saint Nick, but I still hear parts of that in this hour. It's Brian wrote this. But this is part Four Freshmen. It's part Bach. It's just kind of mind blowing, and I didn't even want to begin to try to go through all the chords that they're singing and everything like that. It's a amazing piece of music.
I mean it's beautiful, and they make sense. It feels very like a church choir or something like that. So that all fits, and they had them as separate tracks on the sessions. At least the Smile session, like they put Our Prayer /Gee on the Brian Presents, but then on the 2011 box set, it's actually two separate tracks.
Yeah, and it would
granted they all kind of flow together.
Right,
anyway,
exactly.
but
Some of them are just snippets for effect. Like so, right after that, you go into this. Doo-wop thing it's an old tune by the Crows was their name, and they were from the 50s, and so this is just you go from Bach Four Freshmen chorale piece to kind of Brian showing, hey, here's how American music is. It's this melting of this into
and so that's
this.
That part right there. That's a
cover.
That's a cover, and that was and this has been driving me crazy, and I still haven't figured it out. But that is part of a TV show of some kind, and I can't remember. If you know, please comment in the section where I think it's like the end credits of a song where they do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what show.
Oh, I know what one you're talking about, and it's not exactly the same music, but it's almost that exact riff.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but How I Love My Girl. I know that was part. I'm wanting to think was that part of it? Anyway,
please, if you know, it's been driving me crazy. If you know what I'm talking about.
But what a neat way to open the album. It's like a prayer and okay, yeah, but don't take it so seriously.
Yeah. No, for sure.
And then we're into the Americana / Old West / Manifest Destiny movement, or whatever it was going to be, which the cornerstone of that all is Heroes and Villans. And Heroes and Villans was the follow-up single to Good Vibrations. And Brian really worked on it a lot. I think it might have been the first one that him and Van Dyke wrote. I'm not really sure. But again, we go from Pet Sounds music to this in the key of D flat. I've been in this town so long and back in the city, I've been taken for a lost and gone and unknown for a long, long time. Fell in love years ago with an innocent girl from the Spanish and Indian home of the heroes and villains. You know what that reminds me of? She come out with her best friend from the summer in L.A. She took a small apartment down on the beach where you find them every day. Let me say, same chords and everything. It's a long, very non-typical Brian to stay on a chord that long, let alone just a plain old triad, just a plain chord. So, and then it goes into the Heroes and Villains section, which just takes that in E flat minor, Heroes and Villains, does see what you've done. A flat 7. Again. Dun, dun, dun. If I had my other guitar, I'd do that part from the concerts that they play, that arpeggiated part. But it's simple music. Not all the vocal parts. It's got a bunch of stuff going on vocally, probably some of the most complex background vocal parts he ever did on Heroes and Villains. But the music itself is just 3 2-chord stuff.
Oh, interesting.
It's not, it's just, so it's, And then the Smile version, you've got we always heard about the cantina section and stuff that was in that wasn't on the one that actually came out, right? All kinds of other stuff. And sure enough, it's all around. They weren't lying to us. This In the Cantina was not on this version that came out on Smiley Smile or as a single. So there's lots of this that's on Smile that's not on the regular Heroes and Villains. Anything you got to say?
No, I mean, this is where I get into like kind of the disorienting, like this is the same song because all how they move through it, I mean, just that's literally where I'm just like, what the hell? Like this unexpected movement is kind of because you start out with this like that driving, and then it
it's supposed to be a shift in the film,
and then
Heroes and Villains changing the story a little bit, right? Just see what you've done, and then go back to the story about the cowboys and everything. One thing that Van Dyke says is that this was one like Brian hummed the melody to him, and Van Dyke says, I knew right then what he wanted was he did not want the rhythm of that melody to change at all. So I had to fit a syllable to every one of these things. And he said, I've been in this town so long that back in the city, I've been taken for a lost and gone. It was matching Brian, and so that's a magic of all of this stuff too, as Van Dyke, not just creating poetry that is beautiful in its story and ambiguity, but also the rhythm of it. The rhythmic matchup with Brian's music. And so, a lot of stuff going on. It's also, we talked about cowboys and the Indians, sort of, but it's just a story about heroes and villains just in general, good and bad. Kind of sets the stage for everything. Yeah. You got that?
All good.
How about Do You Like Worms?
Yeah, which
imagine being 10 years old and reading that in a book. That came out. There's a song called "Do You Like Worms," which was just thought to be and still was a working title for the track. He did not have anything done for it yet. Didn't have an idea for the vocals or anything. So "Do You Like Worms" is probably just a funny title he attributed to it because he and Van Dyke chose to rename it "Roll Plymouth Rock" but "Do You Like Worms." It's another basic kind of a mantra type thing. It reuses heroes and villains sections, those minor sections, but this time it's got bicycle rider lyrics on it. So in the late 1800s, bicycles were and early 1900s, they were the thing, and they kind of usurped a lot of other things, and they kind of destroyed a lot of the other culture, right? And so part of these sections are the bicycle rider flying over the country, kind of seeing, surveying what's been done and everything. He's tipping the rock over at Plymouth Rock, and he's going across the country, and he ends up chanting some Hawaiian chants with some guys in Hawaii. But it's basically "Do You Like Worms" is Plymouth Rock to Hawaii.
Yeah, right.
And, even without all the words in there, I love the especially the Hawaiian music that he's able to generate at the end of that thing with I don't think it's a steel guitar. It's like a guitar with a Coke bottle with a slide to make those Hawaiian guitar sounds. I'm not really positive, but
so incorporating the part from the Heroes and Villains, that's obviously like first kind of we see that already within the third song. Mm-hmm. People don't do that.
Well, but that's symphonic ideas.
Oh, okay.
But that's like I'm taking something from this piece and bringing it back in here, disguised maybe with some different lyrics and a different idea, but it will tie this to the first piece somehow. And that's what I mean. That's what symphonies.
But not necessarily in the pop music, right?
This is a teenage symphony to God, never been done before. Okay.
Yeah,
it's like Rhapsody in Blue. Gershwin's, it has several movements, and there are always quotes all over the place from other songs and movements.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, but I know I mentioned it. Do you like worms is just a couple of chords in places. So we got heroes and villains, couple chords. Do you like worms? Couple of chords.
And then it's Barnyard.
Well, I am in great shape and Barnyard.
Yeah, because on the sessions it's I'm in great shape. Barnyard on the 2004. Which one do you want to go? Well, we'll
go with great shape and then Barnyard. That being said, I know Barnyard was probably good. A lot of these was debatable of whether he was going to leave them on the album too.
Sure.
But they certainly fit the theme here, and Barnyard has quite a lot of history behind it. I'm in great shape. It's just kind of a little crazy track about a guy getting up in the morning ready to hit the day, there's a harp in it and some crazy fuzz instruments and everything. It's kind of like a psychedelic breakfast gone mad. But then get into Barnyard. Barnyard is funny because, and I think I heard Matt Jardine talk about this one time, is that Al talked about those Barnyard sessions and Brian having them lay down in the dark and do those animal noises and everything like that. And Al hated all. A lot of it scared him. It disturbed him.
I could see that.
Yeah,
I
me
could
too.
see that. Yeah.
Well, if you see your friend make this sort of a change in, this amount of time, it's it definitely was a different thing. All that's in the documentary. They say they got Brian's friends got in fights about who got to be. I want to be the lamb or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's neat because it's Beach Boys fused with folk, kind of, and like I love those oohs, the ooh. That's really, it's Beach Boys on top of folk music, and also I love the hip lyrics. They're kind of hip lyrics for a Barnyard. Hit the dirt, do a 2.5. Next time I'll leave my hat on.
Yeah.
Jump in the pig pen. Next time I'll take my shoes off.
Yeah.
It's funny stuff, but I think it's all just kind of linking type tracks, right?
Yeah.
Which goes right into the next linking things. Mm-hmm. Which is the Old Master Painter. It was written by I think Haven Gillespie, which all he does is has the cello plays the Old Master Painter theme, and then they go right into a reinvented, reimagined "You Are My Sunshine" sung by Dennis, and then Mike at the end, and it's just like this Americana thing, picking an old American song and just turning it inside out, doing, shifting the mood of it completely. It's like, it's a melancholy, You Are My Sunshine, My Only Sunshine is kind of melancholy, but this kind of turns it really kind of sad.
Yeah.
And so, but it's, in essence, I think it's more of just kind of a linking thing to get to Cabinessence.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just that kind of it all just flows together. It just flows together real nice.
And do you have anything more to say about any of that stuff before we get to Cabinessence?
No, I mean, the only thing is I guess I kind of feel the Al Jardine comment a little bit, like, because I even write on here, not sure how I feel about this one, for the barn, as far as the Barnyard goes.
Yeah.
And I can't remember, it's all kind of, there's a part where like the vocals go away and there's just like a saxophone, I think. And I don't know if that's part of Barnyard or part of the other one.
That's part of Great Shape. And then there's a fuzz thing that's kind of like a real acid trip thing.
That was like the moment where I was like, okay, I realized wasn't too fond of that, because I was like, ooh, I like this when the vocals went away and it was just the music.
I have to think of some of those things, whether they would have been in there or not. They seem like unedited things. To me, some of that stuff seems like cool stuff that they wanted people to hear that they found on the tapes. And so God, that's so cool. We can't leave it off. But it doesn't seem to fit,
Yeah, totally.
There's a lot of the, actually the woo, 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 the train thing they have in a couple different spots where I was like, I don't know if that was really supposed to go there. You know what I mean? You argue that kind of stuff forever.
Yeah, but that's pretty much it with all those.
Then the final thing for the Americana thing, Cabinessence.
So Cabinessence, I mean, this is just quite the movement. Gave me that same swirling feeling that I, was getting in some like Heroes and Villains and stuff. So, What do you want? How do you want to feel about this one?
This is one that I thought for many years before I got my first Smile bootlegs. No, I think it was when I actually heard Cabinessence off 2020 when I was young that I realized that, those songs I'm hearing about in that book that were going to be on that Smile thing, Who Ran the Iron Horse and Home on the Range and Grand Coulee Dam, are all the same song, or at least they were put together for this thing, like that. So one of the things you have to remember for the Smile version that you're listening to is even though there is a Carl vocal on the verses, which is beautiful, it wasn't there in 66. Carl took this whole thing, almost all of it was done except for a verse vocal, and in 68, he put a lead vocal on it, and it ended up on 2020. That's what we're hearing here. So Carl's got a 1968 vocal on there. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and and if we're talking about like the 2011 box set version, is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah, so that, I like that version better than the 2004.
Oh yeah,
because it just kind of feels like the demo version. Like when you hear a demo of a song, and then when you hear like the polished done version, you're like, yeah, I still kind of like the demo.
And see, I'm glad I had you listen to that 2004, but it's like that can never be considered the deal.
You got it. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Almost not even fair to compare them. Is that what you? Is that
yeah,
what you mean?
It's yeah. I would basically say that. Would you go ahead? We were going to play a snippet of this. We're going to play it from the beginning because I want to hear the beautiful track without Carl's vocal, and then I want people to hear the Who Ran the Iron Horse without the vocals, and then we'll go to the end Grand Coulee thing. Before we play it, the Iron Horse section, guys, it's supposed to sound like a train, and the cellos and everything going on. I mean, that sounds like a train going across the prairie, if anything ever does. But also, you can hear guys hitting spikes, railroad spikes. And Brian says they had him do it something like this up on the headstock of the guitar. That's the sound that you'll hear in there. And then when we get to the end of the Grand Coulee Dam, even though the vocals aren't going to be on here, remember, this is one of the famous spots where Mike got Van Dyke apart from everybody and said, over and over the crow cries, uncover the cornfield. What does that mean? And Van Dyke says, I don't know. I haven't got a clue.
yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and play a little bit of that.
And this is from 30 Years of the Beach Boys. This is what we're pulling this
track
from.
Track only on disc 5, yeah.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
It's Carol Kay on the banjo, the bass player, right here. That counterpoint right there, one thing going in another, it's really cool. Those chords. All right. There's the train. Spikes. How he came up with how to visually, okay, let's go ahead and cut it and go to the end Grand Coulee section. I love this piano that opens. And I love this. Here comes the crow getting ready to take off. He's off the cliff. Takes off. Flying over, swooping over the cornfield for the rest of the tune. Think of Beach Boys swirling vocals going over the top. And then we got Indian music going on in here. You hear that little sitar quote in there? There's all kinds of stuff going on from different systems of music. You know, if you're talking about Indian music, I mean, they got a whole different way that they deal with it over it. Anyway, go ahead and kill it. I want to play a little bit. So, this is just the chords to open that first part. We're going to E flat major 7. It's probably got a G in the bottom of it, but the voicings I've got here are limiting a little bit. And then to an let's say an E flat 7 with the G in the bottom, and then A flat, and then back. It's the same chord we started with, but we're going to think of it as a G minor 7 here, and then a B flat with a D in the bottom, G7 sus4, and then C minor to C minor 7, and then we've got back to C. So that was all crazy ornate, and then we're back to mantra stuff. After this one chord down, then B flat. So that's the Iron Horse section. Is just 2 chords. The neat thing is the second time they do that, if you listen, Dennis has a line about a truck driving man. So it's all about the development of railroads, but then he's also going to give stuff about the trucking industry, right? Mm-hmm. You know, there's a truck, you know, it's all the same thing. Just I don't know how they came up. Have you ever heard that part of Cabinessence? Should we try to bring that up right in the middle? It's the second Who Ran the Iron Horse section off the first Smile, that version that I had you listen to. And if we could find it real quick.
Yeah, do you know...
It'll be about 1 minute and 40 seconds.
Wow, no, exactly.
No, I don't. That's just guessing. I knew Grand Coulee was. You said. Okay, so go way up. Okay, this should be it. And then listen real closely after they get going, and they'll sit. There's still Who Ran the Iron Horse, but then Dennis starts this other rap.
Never caught that. Never caught that.
Yeah, well, it was supposed to be mixed way down, and Dennis always said it was one of his coolest things that he ever got to do, was to do that truck driving man line in Cabinessence.
Yeah, I never would have caught that without you pointing that
now,
out.
the very end of that, the music. So, have you seen Coulee? So what that is just we're going C to C minor 7, F to F minor 7, B flat to B flat minor 7, and then E flat, da 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 da, over and over, crow flies cover. I was singing the wrong melody, did that on the end. Over and over, pressure. And all that is a B flat with a C in the bottom, so polychord, and it releases to a C. That's over that. And the Indian. Anyway, boom.
Boom. Boom. That's it. So then Wonderful? Is that...
Oh, well, God, we go from amazing to even more amazing.
Yeah,
so
man.
that was the end of the Americana thing, and
That-
now we're into kind of this cycle of life thing, right? Or circle of life. This wonderful Brian and Van Dyke, always been one of my favorites. It's on Smiley Smile, and that version, even when I was a little kid, I knew there was something so special about this. I didn't know. I was too young. I didn't know why. And it's just an organ, basically, accompanying on Smiley Smile. But this version with the harpsichord, Brian's playing it and everything like that. I mean, harpsichord speaks Baroque music anyway.
Right.
And he's playing kind of in a Baroque style, and he's using Baroque writing. There are no fancy jazz extensions in this song, meaning there's no like minor sevenths or ninths or 11ths or polychords or any of the regular Beach Boy tricks. And it's one of the, what he does it all through chord inversions and voicings, which is the way Bach would have done it, you know, or people like him. So it doesn't have one fancy chord in it. It's in and it's really hard to figure out what key it's in. I mean, it starts with a D flat that seems like it's the 1, but could be the 5 coming out of the beginning, and then it kind of ends on A flat, but it's moving around all over the place. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do my best here, guys. So it starts out with a D flat chord and then this little bass line behind it. Let's see. Then we've got a B with an F sharp in the bottom, or it could be in this context theoretically a C flat with a G flat in the bottom. I'm not going to say that again though because it just confused people. and then A flat minor, and then we're going back to D flat with the 3 in the bottom, then a G flat with the 5 in the bottom, G flat minor with that 5 still in the bottom, and then back to B with F sharp in the bottom, and then, or let's actually go here, and then A flat minor, and then D flat minor, and then finally A flat on the end. Then it's A flat with the 5 on the bottom, so E flat. Then D flat with the 3 in the bottom, A flat with the 5, D flat with the 3, and then A flat with the 5, and then running up. I don't know how it kind of sounds like a mixolydian. It sounds like a modal. I better not lie too much about my mode knowledge. So we're back to basically the same thing. He does the front half. Oops, sorry. Then so it goes. So we're going to go E with a G sharp in the bottom, then F fully diminished. Now that's not a fan, that's still just a regular chord. And then B, and then a G flat with a B flat in the bottom. So that's like a 3 in the bass. And then E with B or 5 in the bottom. D flat minor in root position. And then we're back. Anyway, it's a crazy piece of music, but I was just thinking about that just a couple of days ago. There's no fancy jazz extensions. It's all basic chords, but just using different bass notes and inversions and specific voicings of the chords to create all the complexity.
Crazy.
Yeah.
I don't even...
Let me see what else I got. Van Dyke's poetry on this is so cool. I mean, farther down the path was a mystery. Through the recess, the chalk and numbers, a boy bumped into her, 1-1 wonderful. A boy bumped into her, 1-1 wonderful.
Yeah.
and all fall down, lost in the mystery, lost it all to a non-believer of even. That, damn it, didn't just lose it, lost it to a non-believer. And now all she's got is her mom and dad left, and try to get back to some semblance of what she thought was real, but her life's been forever just,
Yeah.
changed.
Yeah.
God reached softly and moved her body. Pretty damn
there's some
high level
I was about to
poetry
say,
there.
Yeah, for sure. I was gonna say there's some depth there.
You put that with Brian's amazing music, and this is why people think that this is the height of Brian Wilson.
Yeah, well, that just like, I mean, this song specifically kind of speaks to this. That whenever I do this, I like give myself a week to listen. Like there wasn't enough time. Mm-hmm. Forgive me, all you listeners that have been listening to this for years. I just hadn't heard most of it. I hadn't heard. But
they're gonna like having that perspective of
Because
what happened to a guy that knew quite a bit about the Beach Boys, but didn't know the Smile story, and now had to digest it in about a week.
It's such like a. It's just a very interesting time period.
Oh yeah, it's a big part of their story, and they sold it forever. They kept on baiting people with, we might put Smile out. Even in the early '70s, those concerts from Carnegie Hall, Mike even says several years ago we did an album called Smile. And it just might come out this next week, or we might put it out, or whatever. Like, so they used the legend of this thing, even though it was something that never happened.
Right.
All right, let's see. So are we ready to get off Wonderful and get into what was called Look?
Look, yeah.
And then after that, they decided Song for Children, which I think is kind of a good title for it because it's a segue into Child as Father of the Man getting the surfs up anyway, and it's obviously from the box set, it's an unfinished piece of music. It never had any lyrics over the top of it till Brian's 2004 deal. But it's also got some the march music, right? Very childlike. But that march music was popular. Happy Together. There was lots of pop bands in the 60s that had this like raga, almost kind of just a march feel to some of that stuff at that time. So it was not as out of place as you would think. But remember that part in Good Vibrations just a little while ago I was telling you?
Yeah.
Da 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 on the end of Good Vibrations. In the middle of here you go ba da 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 da. Part of Good Vibrations shows up in Look. And then also there's a snippet of an old tune I used to play on the fiddle all the time, his old pop tune called the 12th Street Rag. Da 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 da. Okay, and one of the session players called him out on the tapes, and he goes, "Hey, Brian, that's a vamp from 12th Street Rag." He goes, "Yeah, I know, it's all right. I don't steal." Says something like that. The whole thing sounds like a little playroom, though.
I can see that.
It's so. Song for Children kind of makes sense. It was always, I just love those tracks, but without any of the melodies going on when I was hearing them on the bootlegs, it's still a real vague type of a feeling for me, these tunes, that just have the track.
Right. So then when you did hear the lyrics that they put to it,
Easy, my child, it's just enough to, I think, again, that sounds like 60, 70-year-old Van Dyke and Brian, as opposed to, it's tough for me to think that's what would have went on in 66, 67.
Got it.
Now he did find, now the stuff on Roll Plymouth Rock, where waving from the ocean liners, cheering, he found those in a briefcase. They never were on but Van Dyke had some original lyrics that they wrote at the time that they're in Do You Like Worms specifically, and there might have been another spot where he actually had stuff. I had stuff we did back then. So they were able to do a little bit on there. Should we go into Child as Father of the Man then?
Yep.
Which is, again, is just it's unfinished. It's kind of the epitome of these chant mantra things, just that Child as Father of the Man thing going over. I know there would have been other stuff going on with it. But to me, it's just it feels like a really like a brooding bridge to Surf's Up. You know, it definitely, these two songs definitely set up Surf's Up. You know, I don't know. Do you have anything to say about either one of those?
No, I think it kind of mimics what you said. I kind of liked the one. I actually think I liked it better without the lyrics, to be honest, on these ones.
That's why I'm always going back. I listen to these things without the lyrics.
Yeah, that's what I have written down. Is that So I think we should get into
the last song of the cycle or circle of life movement, and it's the thing. It was, well, I said Heroes and Villains is a cornerstone. Surf's Up is the cornerstone of this album. You know, kind of like the highlight. And this is the one that Brian did on the CBS thing that we talked about with Leonard Bernstein. And so everybody was waiting for it to come out. Imagine Brian doing, it's on the internet. Go look at that, folks. Brian playing Surf's Up at the piano by himself in 1966.
Actually, I need to look.
I
need to watch that too.
Blow your mind. It's just incredible to see him at that time. This is, you know, obviously an amazing composition. It's not near as hard as like the Pet Sounds music, but it's still the use of bass notes and the types of chords. It's a great classic example of him using a minor chord with that minor chord's four note in the bottom of it. It's kind of it's a jazz harmony trick that he would have learned from the Four Freshmen. But it creates a lot of ambiguity in trying to figure out if these are minor or major chords. They could be sixth chords, they could be minor seventh chords, because so many chords can be different things in different contexts. It's a part of Brian's magic to his music is tunes like this, tunes like Caroline No, parts of Cabinessence that we just went over. Because of the complexity of what he's doing, it's really hard to figure out what exact chord he's implying. That's why with the Pet Sound stuff, when I had his notes in there where he was going, this chord, but this in the bass, you know, that was something like Surf's Up. This is extremely important. The other thing is the tag on this Surf's Up. I don't know if it would have been on Smile.
Oh, okay.
That was created in 1971. So here's another one. I think they flew in Brian's vocal on this one they didn't put the Carl vocal for 1971, but definitely the tag, even on the version that you listened to, is from 1971. And Brian came down the stairs and told Al to sing a children's song. Have you listened as they play it?
So from the 1971 version, they put it on this version.
I think that's what they did to make this version of Smile. They just liked the way it turned out like that, so they just left that 1971 tag. I don't know if that tag would have been on the original Surf's Up. So when they did Surf's Up in 1971. Okay, so they did this, and then they put "This Child is Father of the Man" tag on the end of it with Al singing this line that Brian had remembered. He came down from his bedroom and told him to sing it. But I think that was a 1971 creation. I don't know if it would have been on the... It might have been. It might have been. But anyway, these are kind of...
Your theory on it.
Okay. I will go ahead and get into the music a little bit on this one. So it starts out what I think is a G minor 7 with a D in the bass. It could also be a B flat with a D in the bass, a major chord, not a minor chord. But so, necklace played upon, hand in hand, some drummed along. Oh, now this is going to end up being a D minor 11 with the 11 in the bass. That's a 4. That's a minor chord with a 4 in the bottom. It sounds like two chords smashed together. It just sounds like a super sophisticated jazz chord. Nothing like this going on in Wonderful. And then back to that G minor 7 with the D. B flat. Call. G minor 7, F with the C in the bottom, C7. Now check this out. We'll keep that C note there and we play a D chord with it. So it almost sounds like a D7 with the C in the bottom, but that's a magic chord. And then he goes G with D in the bottom. And then A7 with the flat 7 in the bottom. And then finally to D with the 5 in the bottom. So I'll play that again. 2, 3, 4. So cool. I can't grab that. Canvas the town, brush the backdrop. Are you sleeping? So I think the song is in F. And it's starting with a 2, dun 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 dun, going to the 6 in the basic chords, and then 4, 2, and finally 1, 5, and then this thing, which is that ain't nothing. But is it setting up this? Oh, maybe it's the 5 of this G coming over that's got the. But oh no, here's. That A7 with the 7 in the bottom of the, but it finally releases to D with an A. So it could, but I think that verse is in F. I don't know. Other people, so then you get to the next part, the dove nested towers. It's in A flat, so A flat 6. He's using 6 chords here. Dove nested towers, the hour was. And then we're going to an E flat 6 with a B flat in the bottom. Dun 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 dun. Carriage across the fog to step to lamplight cellar tune. Then D minor 7, the laughs come hard in. Then B flat with a C in the bottom. Oh, C7, F. D minor 7. Dun 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 dun. That's E fully diminished to an F. Then while that porter do, back to D. A choke of grief, heart and die, beyond belief, a broken man too tough to cry. And then you're back to surf's up aboard a tidal wave, come about hard and join the young and off in spring. You gave, I love this. I heard the word, wonderful thing, a children's song. Goes B flat and then C minor 7, and then so I'm going to go through that again. That very end thing is I heard the word. So D flat, straight up D flat, and then C minor 7, and then F minor 7 down. And there's some other stuff going on there, and then B flat, and then the C minor 7, and then I think the tag goes F minor 7. Then F minor 11, then the B flat, and then to C minor 7 with that crazy bass line going under, down, 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 and the children know the way. So those are all the sections to Surf's
cool.
Up.
Jeez, so cool. I forgot we were recording a podcast for a second. I was so into what you were doing there.
It's really those are some that the way that he can come up with those inventive chords, and then the melodies, that like the melody that he superimposes over the top of that, and wonderful, the progressions are crazy enough themselves, and then to come up with it's brilliant.
Yeah.
The guy's brilliant.
Yeah, that's like I said, I walked in, I said, man, Brian Wilson's a trip, man.
Yeah. So that was the end of the circle or cycle of life. And now we're into the elements, sort of. And I don't know if I Want to Be Around in Workshop would have started the elements, but I know that they were going to use parts of it. As a matter of fact, Workshop, a little hint of Workshop is on the end of the original Do It Again. Just a little bit.
Oh,
you can
really?
hear them hammering on and everything. They put just a little bit, a little smile teaser on the end of the song Do It Again. But where am I? Oh, so I think the I Want to Be Around thing. So possibly Brian walked into a session with the Wrecking Crew, and they're all jazz guys, right? And they were jamming on some sort of a jazz tune. And it might have been that Brian thought, "Oh, that's cool. Hey, let's do that. That's kind of breezy. I like that." So I think, or, Frank Sinatra had a hit, I think, or not a hit with it. Frank Sinatra is one of the guys that put it out. I think it's a Johnny Mercer tune or something like that. But anyway, so it's kind of spontaneous. Well, those same Wrecking Crew members are the people playing the tools on the
Nice.
the drills, and they did it at a different session, but you got Carol Kay and Hal Blaine and all those guys out there with hammers and drills and all this other stuff, and where he came up with that Workshop I always heard was going to come at the end of Fire. That was kind of the rebuilt Dominic Priori. Oh my God, let's give a shout out to him, the Smile historian that changed everything for me. That book right there, game changer. Look, listen, vibrate, smile. This is what every Smile fan ought to get first and go from there. But I think he was the one that he said that was the I Want to Be Around in the Workshop. We're supposed to be kind of the cool out and the rebuilding after the fire. So anyway, they put it on the beginning here. Then first of all, we get into Vegetables, Brian and Van Dyke tune.
Yeah, and it's such a cool song with such goofy lyrics.
Yeah, again, it's like Barnyard, the weird, goofy lyrics to a farm song.
Yeah.
So this is the Earth section of what the Elements was going to be, and it's simpler music again. It's kind of like here's just a couple of chords, and the eat a lot, sleep a lot thing in the middle is another kind of a mantra thing. Just goes back and forth between a couple of chords. Which this is all health food was just getting going at that time, and Brian was preaching it to everybody, but he was still eating burgers and shakes. But then what's really funny is he opens his Radiant Radish about 2 years later. The health food store.
Yeah,
so this all shades all that a little bit. The Owl is singing the vocal on this Smile version. So it's kind of Owl gets his vocal cameo on Smile, or lead vocal. I just think it's I've always enjoyed the tune.
Yeah.
And it ends up on Smiley Smile, and you'll like that version.
Yeah.
They use parts of the Smile version. But it was going to be at the end, before Smile fell apart, they were pumping this as was going to be the single.
Oh, interesting.
And Van Dyke was going, no. And they even went and took pictures of Brian at a farmer's market. And this, I think it was Van Dyke who was heavily against them releasing Vegetables as a single.
Probably a good call.
With when you got Surf's Up.
Yeah.
Anyway, so then we get Holidays. I want to go ahead and play a snippet of Holidays. It's unfinished, and I always knew it was a bridge to Wind Chimes from the bootlegs because it has the Wind Chimes theme in the end of it on the marimba. But there's also a major seventh thing in the bass that is so dissonant. I've noticed it from the very beginnings of listening to the bootlegs, and it never bothered me. It just affected me, and I'm going to show you where that happens. Just start it from the beginning. here. It's right. That seems it's a half step off from where, but he's treating it as the major 7 note. It's an odd thing. Here it comes again. That makes more sense, but so much tension here. Just never. You can go ahead and kill it. It's a fun unfinished piece. Also, that march feel again coming in, kind of like the childlike feel. Do you have anything on this?
No, I couldn't. The only thing about this is, like it's something sounded familiar about it, and I couldn't put my finger on it. I didn't try to research it too much, but something was familiar, and I don't know if it was used later in their stuff or taken from somewhere else. But nothing that was like.
Again, it's an unfinished track.
Yeah.
And the pirate stuff that they made for the Brian, I don't think that's one. Not
your thing on that one.
Well, no, I just don't. It just doesn't seem like it would have. It would, I don't think that would have flown in 1966 or 67. Let's just put it that way. So the very end of this, and it goes into the wind chimes thing. And when I was listening to bootlegs, I've got my 3-color Smile vinyl bootlegs, one of the earliest ones put out. But a lot of people know about that particular one, but that's where I first heard this. I go, oh my gosh, this was going to be before wind chimes. And I figured that out 20 years before I heard any official, and by God, I was right. But it's not hard to figure out either. Wind chimes is the air. Mm-hmm. Brian and Van Dyke's. It's such a breezy tune. Carl has the lead vocal on it. I love the link right before it gets started. It's like they're little choir boys, and it's real soft, and it's some of the dynamics you're talking about in some spots. And they recorded so many pieces for that. And I've heard on bootlegs some of the other things I like better than what they use. It's called Whispering Wind, Send My Wind Chimes a Tinkling. There's a little snippet in there before that, and they get into it. The bass line in Wind Chimes is lifted directly from Heroes and Villains a lot of the time. Brian's using the 5 in the bass a lot, like this whole album is covered with that, as was Pet Sounds, and was getting into that. There's a bluesy part in the middle where a 6-string bass and a guitar are playing together that I always, as a matter of fact, when Brian put it out, I thought they invented that. I thought, man, that's still cool as shit, man. I thought it was maybe Nick Walusko and Probin maybe got together and made that up for that, because it just seemed like modern and boom, boom, doom, doom, doom. You know what part I'm talking about? Exactly. And then shit, when I heard the original, and then no, they did it back then. That's one of my favorite parts. You talk about a hip groove, man. That is it. Do you have anything to say?
This was the one that I had said before, where it was like the one from the 2004 version was like more jarring when it kind of went from quiet to loud. It was like, whoa. And then, and then just like, kind of sitting there listening, analyzing. It's like, it kind of made like, I wonder if it was like, well, either version where it's like symbolic of wind can be very subtle and breezy, but can also be blowing. You know what I mean? Because
wait till you hear the Smiley Smile version, and don't you dare cheat and listen to it before it's time for that. Uh-huh. But I did this because Brian said he was just laying around on his porch looking at the wind chimes. That's how that song came about. Is just some wind chimes on the back porch blowing in the wind, and figure, that's another. I mean, it's one of the Smile version I like better than the Smiley Smile version quite a bit. It's a major as opposed to a minor version, and we'll get to that when we get to Smiley Smile. Okay, then we got
the fire, right?
Fire, the fire part of Elements.
And so, and I had heard this one before. I'd heard obviously the all the stories from it and all that, and so I knew about this song. I can't say that I enjoy this song. I mean, it's not like I can't wait to listen to, you know what I mean? But it's a cool idea. But yeah, it's like someone who's like on drugs.
Well, to me, it's the most I can see sweaty firemen running around. Not the cartoon version. We're going to play a little bit of this just for people who haven't heard it. But when they get into the heavy stuff, I mean, I see sirens, I see pieces of houses falling over, and just the most gruesome flames in the world, and those sirens and everything. To me, it's a musical depiction of a hellish fire.
Yeah.
And maybe, how he did that.
Sure. And maybe that's why me or someone might not want to experience that.
Yeah, well, and I don't go looking for it all the time. It is for sure. It's not on my favorites playlist or anything like that. But when I want to show somebody, I say, hey, Brian Wilson was a nut job extraordinaire, because he wanted to make something that sounded like fire. And he did this. Yeah. And then he did, also, just, not even a week, I think it was a week or two later, shit started burning down around the studio they recorded it in. He was on acid and speed and everything like that. I mean, he literally started to think, I set out this vibration.
And we got to comment on the fact from that documentary when they started playing it, how the power went out.
Yeah. They were so glad Brian
What
wasn't
a trip.
there.
Like, oh my gosh. Like, I live in that sort of world. So for me, it's just like, what? Like, like that's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
that
and
crazy thing.
It would have even messed Brian up at that point.
Yeah,
too.
you could tell how all the musicians reacted to it. Like, thank God he wasn't there. Yeah, they knew.
It's so dissonant, and the use of his chords are, it's so heavy metal. Even, I mean, it's the beginnings of that. I mean, it has those types of elements in it. Mm-hmm. It's just super, super heavy. The chords mainly are an A flat and a C. I mean, in just those two things all the way through the whole thing with bass lines. Anyway.
Do you want me to play it?
Oh, yes, let's do it. I'm sorry. I got carried away, folks. I was thinking about fire. I did get to go see that Smile show in Chicago where he did reference Mrs. O'Leary's cow when he said the Chicago fire.
Yeah.
So this is the cartoon version of firemen running around. And Hal Blaine says that they played the slide whistles and everything on the separate session. But all those guys had party hats and all the New Year's Eve stuff. But it seems cartoonish, doesn't it?
No, for sure.
Going up
for sure
ladders and sliding down poles and that chromatic piano thing going on in the background. How you can even dream that up?
No.
Whoa, there's some cellos are going. Whoa. Now this is from Smiley Smile. I don't know if these vocals would have ever been on it. Right, keep playing it just a little bit. But there's a representation of fire on Smiley Smile that those come from. I think Jim Gordon might be playing the drums on this too. Remember me telling you a story about Jim Gordon? Yeah. The guy that went crazy and did his mom in?
Yep.
Hear those shows. Whoa. And I love the very end where they have the drum hits. Let's let it play to that. Because it's like the fire's dying out, you know. chorus will fall down, and then the finish. I like those. That's crazy, crazy. Then you get into, you were asking me, so Love to Say Dada is the water chant thing, and that's where you can hear the water chant that they use on the front of Cool Cool Water from Sunflower right there that opens that. And then I think Love to Say Dada inspired the music for Cool Cool Water too, but I've always loved the feeling of Love to Say Dada. It sounds like a under the sea.
Well, and going
thing, like,
from
boom, boom,
the feeling of what we were
as
just
a matter
doing.
of fact, could you just play that and then just play? It feels like you're in 1,000 Leagues Under the Sea when it gets. It's just like two chords at once, like an A over an E. You know,
Talk about
like water. Well, let's let the music get started on this. I love this coming up. Thought it was coming sooner. Feels like I'm in a sea or a submarine down at the bottom of the ocean. Bubbles. So nice feeling and so cute. You can go ahead and kill it.
Yeah.
I always loved the feeling and the feel of that. And what I really love about that is it's what Brian was working on when he decided to abandon it. It's not fire. He was working on something nice and peaceful like that when he decided, yeah, I don't really need to.
Yeah.
You know, we've talked about the reasons that it didn't come out, but you know, he didn't think people would understand it. The drugs, the resistance from some of the other, you know, maybe Mike a little bit, and those problems. There are many, many, many reasons, but I think he just decided to just stop.
Yeah.
You know, he just decided to, you know, and how would that be, man? You're on top of your game. You just created all of this. And you just go, yeah, it's probably not the right time for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, it really is. And people around him that heard it all, like that publicist, Derek Taylor, he got to be in the sessions and hear everything, and it was so excited himself, couldn't wait for it to come out. And so he has a little bit of attitude that he wrote with when he said, you know, every finely wrought piece of music that Wilson has made in the last year has been scrapped. You know, it's kind of like,
Oh, a little pissed.
Disappointed.
Yeah.
And like, so it was a big disappointment for everybody. But when I got these bootlegs, I've got some of the original cassette bootlegs that I got in the 90s when I was in college. And I started really going down the Smile rabbit hole. I mean, it was a whole thing for me. I was, for many years, really, really into it. These days, the Smile thing is a piece of the Beach Boy puzzle to me, and a very interesting one that, again, I don't really spend a lot of time trying to explain it to people, because it's taken me 3 years and 2 weeks to explain it to you.
Yeah. But you did it.
Did it? Well, maybe I don't know. I just hope that this thing wasn't too rambling. It was a fun episode. I loved it.
It was by far the most, homework I had to do as far as getting the context and listening to the 2004 version, the 2011 sessions, but it was, I also had to take a break. Like when I was taking my notes, I was just like, and listening, I was like, okay, I need a minute. It's just so much. It's
well, and
it's
a
so
lot
much.
of it's the same.
Yeah.
Or you get lost in it.
And so, but I'm glad we did it. It's just, as we've worked through these albums, I mean, this is really and as we're getting close to the end, like this has really helped bring everything together. I mean, it really has. I'm really glad that we decided to come back in this season to go through each album like we did in season 2.
Starting with Sunfire.
Yeah, because it's really, I feel like there's even, before I couldn't really, like it didn't retain as well when I didn't go through each track.
Right.
Like just like the history and stuff, like it just didn't stick as well. But now that I have the music with the history, that's why we always say like there are, there's a partner episode to most of these episodes,
Which there is for this one, and I tell some other fun stories like about John Hartford and Van Dyke Parks. I think it's called Good Vibrations, Smile,
And
Van Dyke Parks, and
Yep.
John Hartford
Yep,
is in
exactly.
the title of that one too.
Yeah,
So
and that's right after the legendary Pet Sounds. So I think it's like episode 8, I believe. So yeah, and so I'm just glad we did. I really felt that like kind of everything coming together with this specific one because it's an interesting time period. So
Yeah.
I'm glad we're going through and doing this.
you're getting a whole picture, bud,
Yeah.
and the it's you're never gonna have to do that much homework again. And these
I was fine.
These next albums
I'm good
are
at
going to
homework,
be they're so much fun.
Yeah.
For me, I do the 3 coming up. Sometimes I call them my trilogy:
Yeah.
Smiley Smile, Wild Honey, and Friends.
Yeah.
I mean and I love those records.
Yeah.
I absolutely love them.
So Smiley Smile will be next.
Yep.
And then we'll just go from there. Thank you as
Thank
always,
you, everybody.
Yeah, for
Thank
supporting,
you.
listening, and we will see you next time. Smiley Smile.